So long as like alchemy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's alchemy.
You already know. Guess I probably shouldn't have taken the sip right after that. That kind of ruined the hype, right? Where you been? I've been licking my wounds just like everybody else in Dub Nation. I had the 20-minute breakdown on the Patreon. Very emotional. Very emotional. And shout out to my patrons for the continued support. First off, let's just congratulate the Toronto Raptors. Kawhi, the board man, got paid, right? Fred VanVleet, I've been a fan of Fred VanVleet. He did his thing. I think Kyle Lowry is kind of the biggest redemption story in this, right? Playoff Kyle Lowry, and establishing. He came out game 6, man, and it was one of those things where it was meant to be, right? Or if you're a Warrior fan, it wasn't meant to be. Some of the shot making, obviously, the injury luck or lack thereof and stuff like that. No excuses. Hats off to Toronto. They're a fun team to watch. They're likable, right? Lowry and his CP3 tactics on the court. That's the only thing. That's my only complaint. But other than that, like overall, they're likable. And Lowry off the court's likable, right? He does what he has to do to be competitive. Klay Thompson, to me, is the greatest Warrior of all time. Pun intended. Klay Thompson's the greatest Warrior of all time to me. I've long said he is my favorite Warrior. I expected the loss. I did. At a certain point in the series, I expected it. The writing was on the wall. But what hurt more than that, I think, was Klay going down. That shit burned my soul, man. That shit burned my soul. Got very emotional in the breakdown about that. And the casualties of war were just too much, right? Like, at a certain point, like once Klay and the whole came back and shot the free throws, and we can get a little into the medical stuff. But once, what Steph did said it all. When he walked 94 feet away and sat down, it was like enough's enough. Too many casualties of war. I didn't even want it to go to a game 7, right? I was emotionally exhausted, and who knew what was going to happen? And I was worried they were going to let Klay come back out there and play, given what had happened. Now, talking to some people and, about the hamstring. It's the left ACL, and it was the left hamstring. And the hamstring gives you stability in the knee, right? And so I understand people are bringing that up. Obviously, this medical staff is going to be questioned, rightfully so. But the way he went down and he was at his apex of a two-handed dunk, I think even if his hamstring was healthy, I still think it would have been an ACL injury. Maybe not as severe, but the landing was bad. Danny Green, no, I don't think it was a dirty play. And what I'll point to is he had a chase down block on Cook. And so the fact that he can make chase down plays, I think that it's clean. Now, like if VanVleet came down there and tried to chase down block him, then that's dirty because VanVleet has no chance at making that play. Danny Green had a shot at blocking that ball, so I don't think it was dirty. And I don't think the hamstring played a factor directly in that injury, right? But some people are saying, well, maybe he should have never played. The hamstring was that bad. I'm not in that same camp, and I'll get into the KD stuff here in a second. But I think that given how he was performing, we were getting a game 6 Klay performance. And I have no doubt in my mind he was going to be sent to a 7th game if Klay stayed in that game, right? But I think given the situation, the finals, the way he was moving, I think he should have been out there even though the hamstring was hurt. I don't think you can blame that and correlate that to that injury. Now, if Klay would have just planted on the ground or pivoted and then the knee went out, then you'd say, oh, damn, there was no stability and the hamstring was to blame. But the way he came down, that was going to be a knee injury regardless. And I just hate to see it, man. I hate it. I mean, you hate to see any type of injury, but just the heart and the courage and him trying to stay out there, it just adds to his legendary status in the NBA, not just as a Warrior. Klay's a fucking legend. He's a legend. Moving forward, given sports science, the technology of that type of stuff, I expect him to fully recover. He's not relying on his bounce, right? And so I think he's going to be just fine. Given, I don't know how much time. If you look at his history and his Iron Man ability and his ability to heal, I should say Wolverine if we talking Iron Man. But you know what I'm saying. So I expect him to even heal on the quicker side if you just look at his history with injuries and lack of injuries and how quickly he bounces back. So I expect him to be fully back. His dad said he's signing. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to speculate at that really much. Now, the Kevin Durant thing, that's the emotions, man, because it was one after another devastating injuries. We've never seen anything like this in the finals. I know a lot of people point to that Lakers finals with Scott and Magic. Those were not this type of injuries, right? Those were not career-threatening injuries. And Clay's isn't career-threatening, but Durant's is, man. Let's keep it a buck. And I just think that it's crazy that KD, in order for everybody to truly appreciate his greatness, it may have cost him his greatness, right? And so, I don't know what the decision's going to be. The rumor is Draymond went to New York to visit him. He was meeting with Kyrie. Now, the things that have happened over the weekend, you consider he can't be as confident taking on a new team and being the man. He knows he's out a year, moving north of 30, right? So does that put some doubt in his mind? And then you consider what's happening right now in Los Angeles. You ain't gonna if you ain't gonna make it with just 2 stars, right? That this new super team that's forming, and I'll speak on that here in a minute, right? But you consider that, and then also finally kind of gaining the status that he wanted with the Warrior fan base and the fan base around the NBA. You can no longer ever call him a cupcake. You can no longer ever question his want in basketball character, right? But it just came at such a heavy cost, man. I think moving forward, though, as far as KD, why I think he's going to do just fine. A couple reasons. His build, right? His lack of muscle density. He's long, he's lean. He's not going to put on a lot of weight, right? And guys with that build tend to heal better. That's out of thin air. I have no science behind that. It's just what I've seen in the past. And then you consider his skill set and his size. And so when he comes back, I expect him to kind of this next part of his career, I think he's going to move to more of a 4-5 position, power forward / center position. And usually when we talk about this, it's really defensive. Offensively, the way the NBA is being played, it really is positionless. But I think he's going to guard more power forwards and centers. But I also think offensively, I think we're going to see a blend of Dirk and LaMarcus Aldridge in his offensive game moving forward. And what I mean by that is he already has the one-legger, right? The Dirk, and then Aldridge turning right shoulder the fade. I just expect him to work more in the post with his back to the basket. And with given his size, he can face up and hit you with the jab anyway. So given his skill set, his size, his desire to play the game, I think he's going to be a positive story when it comes to Achilles injury and him bouncing back wherever he chooses to go. And he's not as if he didn't earn that right anyway, but I think Warrior Nation, and he's saved himself the criticism no matter the decision. Now, maybe I'm wrong and people are wild on, I'm going to get into Twitter and this shit in a little bit here, but I just want KD to be 100% wherever he chooses to play basketball. No hard feelings, man. He deserves that. Yeah, I say he earned it, but he'd earned that long before this injury. That's what's sick. It took myself included, right, to be like, damn, man, we all feel guilty. You saw Bob Myers and all this stuff. And the one thing that I didn't like about the organization, now we can get into the conversation. Was it an Achilles? Was it a calf? Was it, they needed to be more transparent. I know that there was some gamesmanship going on as far as, not letting the Raptors know what's happening. But in hindsight, if they were more transparent, there wouldn't be as many questions and maybe the blame wouldn't be just circling around everybody, right? But the one thing that I didn't like that was said from both Bob Myers and Steve Kerr was that they were told that the injury couldn't get any worse. And that's just dumb, right? Any kind of muscle or ligament injury, it can always get worse unless it's already been completely torn. So that's just a dumb statement. And they're too smart to play dumb like that. I thought that just wasn't a good look. It wasn't honest. But, the guilt, the medical staff, it's probably best to just move on from the medical staff, to be honest with you, whether right or wrong or what it was. It didn't seem to be a great season for them. You look at the strains and all these muscle problems. Those are the type of things usually a good training staff can avoid. Chelsea, come home, right? She down in Atlanta, man. But Anyway, I'm going to move on from that. This is a podcast format. So those of you that are listening, like, where's the video? Where this? You can get this on iTunes, Spotify, and then Patreon's going to get extended clips and stuff like that. And I got a lot of stuff planned. I know people are like, hey, where you been? I'm honest, man. Being a fan all my life of the Warriors, I had to lick my wounds. I did my breakdown on Patreon. And then over the weekend, man, like I'm tired of talking about it. I'm exhausted and mentally drained, man. But I'm not salty. I just feel more bad for Durant and Clay. I'm not really salty about the L. I'm experienced of a fan enough to know how lucky we've been, right? And it's been real easy to be a Warriors fan the last 5 years. Now is the time you need to have faith. And now we're going to be able to separate some of these people that have just hopped on and the people that are really true. And let me clarify that, because there's a lot of new Warrior fans during this run. They're going to earn their keep. They're going to stick through maybe this rough season or some rough times and continue. This is what truly made them a fan. There's no shame in that, right? There's no shame in that. It's for the cats that are like, all of a sudden they got Lakers gear on, right? Then it's like, come on, man.
Go get the strap.
We're going to come for you because I'm Dub Nation till the end. All right, let me go down the list here a little bit about this finals. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about just because it was clear. For the first time, I'll say, at least in the Durant era of the Warriors, watching games, you're like, oh, damn, we're the lesser team. Like, we're outmatched. And it was pretty clear to see each night on the floor, right? Steph, what was it, 17 shots in game 6? And look, man, our strengths are our weaknesses. I've had this conversation so many times. Steph's unselfishness, ability to play off the ball, ability to blend in with other stars, you saw the weakness of it with KD and Clay out, right? 17 shots is just not enough, man. Here's the thing, I'd rather have Steph pull up from 40 feet than Draymond shoot open threes. I'd rather have Steph pull up from 40 feet than have Draymond shooting open threes. And I think sometimes he just needs to be more selfish, but that's not in his DNA. For a variety of reasons, these players, this Warriors core 3, have developed around each other. And so their strengths have developed because of each other and their weaknesses. The ability to lead, to be vocal, Steph, it hasn't developed because Draymond's been there. Draymond's shooting hasn't developed because Steph and Clay have been there, right? It's give and take. It always give and take. I'll say this about Steph, though. The scouting report, we saw it. Fred VanVleet was mugging him. He was doing what he did, right? And we've seen Steph over the last few years get more muscular and stronger in order to deal with the physicality and the holding and grabbing off the ball. But let me suggest this. I don't necessarily think that may be the best way to go about it. I think maybe some skill and some tact may be the next step as far as dealing with that stuff, because it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And what I mean is, in tact, I think he should try to put on, and you see this in the NFL with defensive ends and pass rushers. They wear those little baby jerseys, right? They wear a jersey that's like 2 sizes too small for him. And if Steph, as long as he's comfortable shooting and playing in it, I think he should wear a jersey about as small as it could fit him and keep it tucked in. So whenever someone's grabbing or pulling at him off ball, that jersey is going to come way out and it's an easy call. You see it again in pass rushers in the NFL. It's a holding call every time. That's the tactic behind it. The other thing, the skill, because in my 20s, a lot of you know, I got heavily into jiu-jitsu and grappling and training MMA. I never fought, I just trained people. Is when I started to figure that out, what made me fall in love with it is I went and took a class, right? And I had probably 25, 30 pounds on this dude. And he ragdolled me, right? He ragdolled me in rolling around and doing some jits. And I'm like, my God, it's all leverage and skill, right? That's the Gracie way. And so I think Steph, if he were obviously safely, we don't need him sparring and shit, but if he took some grappling and some jiu-jitsu classes this offseason to work a little bit of hand fighting and understanding leverage and hips and stuff, I know it's not the same. They're not on the ground, but I think it could help as far as him understanding, again, leverage, hand fighting, and some of the grappling that goes on off the ball on how to use his leverage against a stronger opponent. All right. Next on my list, Steve Kerr. Now, Kerr is going to get a complete pass for this playoff run because of the injuries, right? They're like, wow, man, he got something out of McKinney. He had Quinn Cook in there. You know what I mean? He believed in Cousins, did he? Or, you know, did he have no other choice but to play these dudes, right? So, look, let me come out right away. Steve Kerr's not going to get fired, right? Steve Kerr has earned enough cachet over this run for him to get better, like to buy him some time, even if there is a slump here or he makes some mistakes. He's earned it to show that he can get better as a coach, because he does need to learn from this experience and get better as a coach. I think he's too rigid, right? I think he's too stuck in this motion offense, and it played right into Toronto's hands. Because I don't think Toronto necessarily has a ton of great on-ball one-on-one defenders. Maybe Kawhi when he's healthy. He sure wasn't healthy in this series, right? But what they do have is a lot of length, a lot of athleticism, and a lot of great team defenders. And that motion off-ball offense shit played right into their hands, and he stuck to it to the very end. I'll say something that's not very popular here, but this is why y'all tune in, man. A lot of these reporters and podcasts and different shit, they're basically reporting the news. They ain't bringing nothing for you fresh to think about. But I do. That's why y'all here. So Kerr, I think Kerr is an egomaniac, like a lot of people are. And I think it shows in his decision-making as a coach. But I also think that Kerr is smart enough to disguise how big of an ego he has by always being self-defecating whenever he talks to the media. He's a sly one. And I'm not saying it's the end of the world or it's a big deal. Again, everybody has an ego. And guys that get to that level, and look at what he has. I mean, he has like 2 hands full of jewelry, right? So rightfully so. He's very smart and he's very accomplished. But I think the ego slips through and shows in his decision-making to be too rigid. And so I think he needs to learn from this and sometimes not try to, it's an ego thing as far as, and let me elaborate on that. Meaning sometimes just go to the pick and roll. Sometimes just go 4 flat and let Steph go ISO at the top, like you saw Dame Lillard do throughout these playoffs. Take the coaching out of it and just go to the very basics. And I don't think we saw enough of that throughout this playoff run. But again, he needs to be given. I'm not saying fire Kerr. He just needs to learn from this experience like everybody else. Next up, let me get at this dude right here. Draymond Green. Day. So Draymond had a rough game 6, man, right? I know the numbers here. The numbers, they always say, Draymond's got 8 assists. Draymond's got 10 assists. What else he finna do? When one of the other dudes draws the defense and he gets it kicked to him in the middle of the floor, of course, if anybody is making any shots, he's getting assists, right? And I don't want to take away from his defense and his leadership and his intangibles. We all know they're at an elite level, right? But Draymond got exposed in this series in several ways. One, physically, and there's nothing he can really do about that. I said that going into this. Serge, Siakam, even Kawhi at 60, 70%. Their size, length, and athleticism, it showed, right? Draymond had a tough time against them, but it wasn't just that. It was skill as well. And Draymond is, so you hear about KD, he's a hooper. I'm a hooper, man. Obviously not nearly at their levels, but what a hooper means is they just love to play ball no matter what. I'll go to LA Fitness or a rec center. I'll just get up shots for an hour and a half, 2 hours, just bap, 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 bap. It's like my therapy. Hoopers, they want to play all the time regardless. It doesn't matter if it's by themselves or in games or whatever it is. And that translates onto the court. You see hoopers because they have great shot making skills and they have a lot of skills. They put in the time, right? Draymond's not a hooper. He's a competitor. And he's an elite competitor. And that doesn't usually go hand in hand because so that's my point is Draymond he's not going to lock himself in a gym and just get up shots and just work on his game. He's not a hooper. He's a competitor. He needs stakes to be on the line to bring out the competitive juices, right? And you saw that during the regular season where shit just didn't matter. You're like, Draymond don't look the same, right? But as soon as things matter, you see the elite competitiveness that Draymond has. And that's a great balance with the skills and hoopers on this roster. You saw him going up and down the court 100 miles per hour, And that only works when you've got 2-3 Hall of Famers surrounding you. You can leave your feet and make decisions in the air. But when you only got 1-2 shooters on the floor and you got a lengthy, smart defense, that shit wasn't working, right? And so what Draymond needs to do is learn from this is, there's an old saying in the gym when you're lifting weights or you're training, whatever it may be, whatever you don't want to do, you should probably do more of, right? And so Draymond loves to compete. I'm sure it carries over out of basketball, right? But he doesn't want to just get in there and get up shots and work on the basics and the fundamentals and up his skill level to get near his competitiveness level. You know what I mean? And so that's what he needs to take into this offseason. Just get in there, lock yourself in a gym and get up shot after shot. You're going to have to become a better shot maker. And I bring it back to these guys have been together their whole careers outside of Durant. I'm talking about the core three, right? So they've developed in the environment that they've been in. Steph is not a great vocal leader on the court, right? Why? Because Draymond's always been that. Draymond's never developed the shot because he's had the greatest shooters around him and vice versa. You get what I'm saying? But Draymond's he's got to increase his shot making, man. So we'll see how that goes. I've got plenty more to say in this offseason. I'm not going to, in this pod, dive into what I think they should do, the moves, because we all know Durant is the first chip to fall. June 30th, I'll be live on my Patreon for free agency and when it breaks. And he's going to be the first chip that falls of the big pieces. And then the Warriors are going to go from there. I think they're waiting on Durant. That's the reality of the situation. So I'm not going to speculate about Draymond's future or moves we should make. I also will be going live for the NBA draft this Thursday. Again, exclusive me on my Patreon. I got a shitload of summer content on there. I want to thank all of my patrons for continuing to support me because YouTube, man. Hey, if I could just eat and live comfortably with my family and just put out free videos on YouTube, that's what it would be. I think it translates to y'all. You know this. I love doing this. I'm not doing this for ulterior motives. I'm doing this because I love it. But I also am an adult with a family, right? I'm not going to get into that again. Patreon, go check it out. Summer coverage, live shit, all summer long. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. So we'll see. That's my take on Draymond and what he needs to work on. And yeah, he struggled, but I'm just explaining why it looked that way. What else do we have here?
Go get the strap.
I'm going to get at Warrior fans a little bit here on Twitter. I'm going to get at y'all a little bit. Because, look, first off, the Anthony Davis news.
Oh, my God. Wow.
We knew, right? You'll see I'm hitting my soundboard a bit much this time. We already knew. But you see a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of Warrior fans on Twitter out here like, you don't see us Warrior fans complaining about a super team. But in turn, aren't you complaining kind of low key? And then that also leads me into the LeBron hate and slander. It's ridiculous. It's a bad look. Look, y'all know I like to talk my shit. I clown. I get my shit off for sure. I talk my shit. If LeBron is caught doing something that's whack and I see it, I'll point it out in a video. Hey, man, this fool acting hella fake over here. Whatever. But a lot, the amount of energy people put on social media to go out of their way to list off like everything LeBron has done throughout his career that's whack is just whack in itself. It's just embarrassing. Stop it. Of course he wants to build a super team. Of course he wants to win. Of course he's going to try to control the shit. Look, again, I'm not a huge fan of his passive aggressiveness or his personality, but he's one of the greatest players of all time. The over-hate is just too much to me. So that's my little rant about complaining about LeBron and complaining without complaining shit. It's silly, man. It's not my style. If I pop shit, I'm popping shit in the moment. That's it. I'm not going back on this. Anyway, let's talk about the trade. I get why they did it. Was it too much? It's gonna be a while to see how this pans out. Clearly they're going all in. And from what I understand, New Orleans, David Griffin, they're going to control the Lakers draft picks for like the next 4 or 5 years. So this is almost, and you see the odds in Vegas, they are the new championship favorites, as they should be, because they've gone all in. They've pushed all the chips in. I would make the argument that this upcoming season, and then one after that, it's kind of championship or bust, because they've mortgaged the future, obviously. And I guess my biggest question is, how is LeBron going to eventually pass the mantle to Anthony Davis? Is he going to do it gracefully? Because the basketball scheme that I see that's kind of problematic is, if you look, AD doesn't want to play center. LeBron doesn't want to play center or power forward. But the reality of it is, at 35, LeBron, and again, I'm talking defensively. Offensively, it's interchangeable. But I think for the Lakers to really work, it's remained to be seen who else they get. But I think they need to be the 5-4, the 4-5. So however you want to rotate it, given the night, Anthony and LeBron need to play the power forward and center spot. LeBron can't be the 3, and he can't be out on the wing all the time. My second question is he going to just send AD out to shoot spot-up threes like we saw he did with Chris Bosh, like we saw he did with Kevin Love? Right? Because, yeah, AD can shoot, but that's not where you want him. That's not ideal efficiency. They both kind of want the ball at that mid-elbow. And so my question is LeBron going to pass this off and be content with AD doing his thing? Now, there's rumors that they may get Kawhi. That would be nuts. But the thing I don't see about that is, again, basketball-wise, these guys kind of all want the ball in the same spot. I'm not sure how that would work. Someone would be taking a huge drastic dip in their basically their productivity and what they do with the ball. But they could get a Kemba Walker or even a Kyrie, D-Lo back to LA. That would be nuts. But the point is, let's say they get Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker and Anthony Davis, that's a devastating pick and roll, right? That's probably the bread and butter. So LeBron, is he willing to kind of play defense, rebound, do the little things that we haven't seen him do the last few seasons? And the last few seasons, he's had an excuse, because the excuse is he's had to shoulder too much of the offensive load. LeBron's got to do it all, so he's resting on defense. He's not doing the little things. He's not boxing out, right? But now what it looks like is he's going to have 2 other superstar players or star players on his roster. Now, LeBron, are you willing to fall back and do some of the dirty work to make the team better as a whole? Or do you still want to be the guy and dominate the ball and send these younger stars to do the dirty work, which they're probably not as capable of doing? I think AD is that versatile, but you're getting diminishing returns, right? You can't have him just be a rebounder and a spacer. That's ridiculous. So it'll be interesting to see, man. Again, they're gonna load up with a third guy. I like the argument of, instead of getting a third max spot type of dude, loading the team with shooters in depth. I think that's the better way to go, but I don't think that's the Laker way. I don't think that's the mentality. I think they want names, they want stars. So we'll see. It's going to be the dynamic of how much is Braun willing to move into the Pippen role. Is he going to do that gracefully, or is it going to be a fight like we've seen in the past with other stars? Because that was never a question. In Miami, the second time in Cleveland, he was still in the prime of his career, so it was no question he was the guy. But now, at what point is AD better than LeBron? He might be next season. We'll see how that's handled. Now, let's look at the other end of that, man. That's what I'm most excited about. Because I think if you were to pick a young guard to play with Zion coming into the league, it'd be Lonzo. I've knocked him. I've knocked his alpha gene, right? Obviously the shooting style and just his passiveness. But the one thing that's very clear when you watch Lonzo play is he has one elite trait, arguably 2, but the one that's not arguable is his passing and his vision. And so now you pair him with the biggest freak athlete we've seen since LeBron came into the league. What's that going to look like, man? That's going to look nuts on the break. The other wing is Ingram running. Now, if Ingram is past his blood clot issues, that I'm really excited. But if that ends up being a problem, then yeah, the trade is what it is. But you have to take that risk at this point. They were kind of hands tied. I really like the Lonzo and Zion pairing. And I know you say, what about the spacing? But if you paid attention to Lonzo before he got chipped up last year, he had started to figure out catch and shoot threes. I don't know the percentages, but I know he shot the catch and shoot way better. We know off the bounce, getting that shot pocket around doesn't work out for him. He hasn't figured it out. But when he can set his feet right, left, right, and catch and shoot, he can knock it down. And I think he's going to generate enough space because Zion, remember, he's not just a dunker or a scorer. He can create as well. He could push the ball and be the creator as well. So the diversity that they have in New Orleans, along with Drew Holiday, is exceptional. They may be the most athletic roster in the league. We'll see how they fill it out here with the draft and everything. I think, you can make the argument Sacramento is, and, some of these teams are going to change around, but they're going to be the greatest show on wood. Pause, if that's a pause. As far as the fourth pick is concerned, I'm going to have a bunch of draft stuff. I'll be breaking down the summer league games and all that, where. My take on the fourth pick is, and that was the hang up, right? It's a 3-person draft, is you got to go Cam Reddish. You got to go Cam Reddish. Hunter and Culliver, they're safe picks. They've got low floors, low ceilings. But I think if you bring Cam Reddish in, now here's the one stipulation. If you bring him in and he's just a knucklehead, you don't like him, right? There's red flags with his character and personality, then okay, you got to pass. But if you bring him in and you're just like, man, he's young, he's 19, right? He needs to mature. You got to take him because he kind of reminds me of like a Rashard Lewis. I know he's not quite as tall, maybe a blend between Rashard Lewis and Paul George. And again, we question maybe the work ethic if he just kind of fades and stuff like that. So you have to judge his character. There's no way I can do that from afar. You have to bring him in and kind of pick his brains. But if he passes the character check, you got to take him at 4. That's my take on things right now. Again, I'll be live for the draft Thursday. Holla at me. All right, before I get up out of here, man, the honeymoon is over in Houston. Chris Paul.
Where your sorry husband
All right, your boy clouded. Look, man, I'll put it to you like this. Look, y'all have already heard. Y'all already know how much I despise Chris Paul. I despise him. He's my least favorite athlete. That being said, from what I'm reading, he's right. Right? Like Harden, and I get it. Like, obviously, he's not the player Harden is at this point. But for what they're saying is he kind of wants to quote coach Harden, and he's calling out Harden for being lazy. He doesn't move off ball and not paying attention to the details. The devil's in the details. And love him or hate him, Chris Paul is right. He's absolutely right. And so, Morey is going to say he doesn't want to lose value and say Chris Paul wants out of there, but the writing's on the wall. And when this initially happened, remember I said, man, I was like, damn, man, that shit ain't going to work. Personality-wise, it ain't going to work. That's how I felt. And again, it was a honeymoon period. That first year, everybody was on their best behavior and they were letting shit slide that would have normally irritated them because they were brand new. Now that that's not the case, we'll see how that ends, man. And I don't know. They're strapped. I've heard this Capella to Boston rumor. I'm not a big Capella guy, man. I don't know about that shit. The Kawhi thing. Check out Rico Hines on YouTube, right? They show the summer runs. I love watching that. I love the unique angles. You really can see the pace that these dudes play at and really get a different look at some of the moves. So the first one I saw this summer was the Clippers out there. You had my Squire Shamit. You had Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Did I get that right? Right? And Sweet Lou and Montrezl Harrell out there. Now, Montrez was out there hitting little between the legs split step back threes and shit, and it's different to see, right? But what popped into my mind was this was a strategic move by the Clippers. They brought all their guys out there and cut a video out there of them looking really good, putting in summer work, just for Kawhi to see. Right now, I've already spoken about the Clippers getting left high and dry. Wouldn't it be crazy if they just signed Tobias? They're like, our big acquisition is Tobias Harris. That would be nuts, right? But I'll leave you with this, Warrior fans. Again, we have to see the Durant decision before I speculate about moving ahead and what to do. So that's kind of what we're waiting on. But there is a world next season where the Warriors are the fourth best team in their division. Right? Like, I have to keep it real with y'all. That's a scary thought. It is what it is. Everything comes back full circle, right? But you look at the Lakers. Let's say they land Kemba. They got 3 stars, right? And then what if the Clippers do, right? If they get Kawhi, then they'll probably be ahead. And then you gets the Warriors at 3rd, possibly. Again, I'm just throwing this out there. And then the Suns, at some point, they're going to have to be better. I think Ayton year 2 is going to be a lot better. If I'll say this, I'm on record as this. They go get D'Lo, that's going to be a shit show. You can't have D'Lo and Book in the same backcourt. They're going to give up 200 points a night. I don't like that. But so, again, The Clippers could get left high and dry. We don't know there's too much to speculate right now. I'm just saying there is a realm where the Warriors are like the third team in the Pacific. So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to cover. I'll keep hitting you with all this stuff moving forward. Again, go check out my Patreon, man. Support your boy. I do this for real. I'm a hooper. I love the game. I'm out, y'all.
I've been winning so long, it's like alchemy.